Hollywood legend Jeff Goldblum.
Hit series Pilgrimage returns to BBC Two and will be joined by Bobby Seagull, Sue Pollard and Rita Simons.
And James Martin helps to deliver a one big thank you to remember.
We'll see you at 7.
The BBC News at 6 now on BBC One with Mashal Hussain.
At 6 today, the UK's biggest police force says it needs new powers to sack people as it tries to rebuild public trust. The Metropolitan Police is looking again at many complaints of domestic and sexual abuse against officers and staff after a series of damaging revelations.
We're already doubling the number of people who are leaving the organisation. I've been really clear there are hundreds of people here that shouldn't be here. I've got tens of thousands of fantastic people, but we're all let down by the hundreds.
We'll be assessing the Met's effort to clean up the ranks. Also on the programme, the pregnant woman who died after being pushed off Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh. Her husband has been jailed for at least 20 years. Warnings about patient safety as junior doctors in England prepare to go on strike for 4 days next week. And at York Minster, the King's first Maundy Thursday ceremony of his reign.
And at 6:30 we have a BBC London special as we look at trust in the Metropolitan Police. We'll hear from Londoners about their experiences and from the Commissioner in charge.
Good evening. Welcome to the BBC News at 6. 90 Metropolitan Police officers have been diverted from investigating terrorism and serious crime to investigate their own colleagues as the force tries to restore public confidence in the wake of damaging revelations and a report that called it institutionally racist, homophobic and misogynistic. The Met revealed today that after looking into more than 1,000 allegations of sexual offences and domestic abuse against officers and staff over a 10-year period, there were 196 people who now need to be risk assessed or re-vetted. It also found that there were another 689 cases which need to be looked at again in case there were missed lines of inquiry or new ones. The Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, also says he needs new powers to be able to sack people. Our correspondent Helena Wilkinson reports.
Liz, who's waived her anonymity, was groomed and sexually abused by a serving Metropolitan Police officer when she was a teenager in the 1990s.
He was a good police officer in many respects, yet by putting that uniform on, by having that warrant card, it enabled him to carry out these acts thinking he was untouchable. Where would I go to if I can't go to the police? He is the police.
Her abuser, Anthony Smith, was jailed last August for raping and sexually assaulting 3 young girls. It's officers like Smith and David Carrick, another Met police officer who raped and sexually assaulted 12 women over nearly 2 decades, whose cases have exposed failings within the force. In January, after Carrick's case, the Met Commissioner promised to root out rogue officers. Dozens of serious crime and terrorism officers have now been moved from their roles to help investigate wrongdoing in the force. Sir Mark Rowley expects this may lead to hundreds of officers having to leave the force over the next 2 or 3 years.
One of the things that encourages me about the future is we were oversubscribed with volunteers from the organisation who wanted to help. The tens of thousands in the majority are as angry and frustrated and embarrassed about this as many of your callers will be, and they want to help sort it out.
Taking questions from Londoners, the Commissioner also renewed his calls for more powers.
There are independent legal tribunals who can decide that we have to keep somebody even though we want to sack them. And that's one of the powers I've asked to be changed for the Home Secretary, and she's doing a review which will publish at the end of this month. That I think if you expect me to sort out the cultural issues in the Met and get rid of the people, then give me the powers to do it.
There's no doubt the scale of the work needed to be done to get rid of rogue officers is huge. There's also an urgency to get the work done, but it will take time, as will restoring public confidence and trust in the police force.
Within 18 months, we might start to see the number of complaints and concerns levelling off and the number of police officers being sacked from the Metropolitan Police beginning to reduce and diminish.
Liz says she believes the Met is now moving in the right direction.
I do think that if the public can see that people are being sacked or they're held to account for what they've done, we can move that forward, but it's a huge task to undertake. But the public need to see that that's being done.
The Met Commissioner says the public should judge the force on the actions it's taking and is confident about reforming the force. Helena Wilkinson, BBC News.
And with me now in the studio is our home editor, Mark Easton. Some stark numbers today, Mark, but would you say this was a good or bad day for the Met?
Well, today we saw the letter that Sir Mark has sent to the Home Secretary and to the Mayor of London, setting out where he thinks the Metropolitan Police is now. In it, he says Londoners need to see action being taken, to see that he's making a difference. And that, in a way, is his strategy. He sounds almost proud that he's uncovering more gross misconduct. He wants to suspend more officers. He wants to sack more officers more easily because he believes that's the only way that you can rebuild public confidence. But as they say about trust, you know, it leaves on horseback and arrives on foot. In other words, you know, it's very quickly lost and takes a long time to restore. And you know, the challenge is huge. A poll for the BBC today suggests, after all the recent scandals, only 29% of Londoners somewhat or strongly trust the Met. Among women and ethnic minorities, 24%. And a few years ago, the Mayor of London's own data suggested 89% of Londoners trusted the force. You know, he's got to turn those numbers around very quickly. Now, the hope is that despite, or perhaps because of the scandals that we're going to be seeing over the next few weeks, people will think, yes, he's really making a difference, but it is a highly risky strategy.
Mark, thanks very much. Mark Easton there, our home editor. A 12-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder after a woman was struck and killed by a car in Sheffield. Police say that she was in her 60s and died at the scene after being found seriously injured in the Greenhill area on Wednesday evening. The boy was found a short time later and is in custody. The man has been jailed for at least 20 years after being convicted of murdering his pregnant wife by pushing her off a cliff edge at Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh. Fawzia Javed was on holiday with her husband, Kashif Anwar, when she fell to her death in September 2021. Our Scotland correspondent Stephen Goddard is in Edinburgh now. Stephen.
Yeah, Fawzia Javed was 17 weeks pregnant when she climbed Arthur's Seat behind me with her husband Kashif Anwar during a short break that the couple had taken to Edinburgh from their home in Yorkshire. Now, they were close to the summit when she fell 50 feet, and as she lay dying, she told a police officer who'd come to help her that her husband had pushed her. She said because she told him she wanted to end their marriage because of his abusive and his controlling behaviour. Now, he denied that. He said it was an accident, that he'd slipped, that he'd bumped into her, and that was the reason that she'd fallen. But today at the High Court in Edinburgh, a jury rejected that. They found him guilty of murder and of causing the death of an unborn child. Now, the judge told Anwar that he was guilty of a wicked crime and sentenced him to at least 20 years in prison. Fawzia Javed's family, they were in court for every day of evidence. Some of it they found incredibly distressing. Today, at the end of the trial, they told me that they've been left with an immeasurable sense of pain and of grief.
Stephen, thank you very much. Stephen Godden there in Edinburgh. Hospital leaders in England have said they cannot guarantee patient safety during 4 days of strike action by junior doctors next week. It will affect planned and emergency care starting on Tuesday, the 11th of April. The BMA union has called for a 35% pay rise to make up for 15 years of below-inflation increases. Today it said that a credible offer from the Health Secretary could stop the strike. The government has said 35% is unrealistic and accused the committee running the union of being militant. Here's our health correspondent, Dominic Hughes.
Hi, it's the site manager. Can I help?
The operations room at Royal Stoke University Hospital.
Louise, where are we at with that ambulance hole now? I think we've got 3 en route and there's 3 on site.
The nerve centre, where staff and managers can see the pressure the hospital is facing in real time. Next week's strike by junior doctors, who make up around half of the hospital's medical workforce, will mean an already stressed system will get worse. And it's the issue of patient safety that weighs heavily on the bosses trying to manage those pressures.
My job is to make sure that our patients are kept as safe as possible and to put that mitigation in place. I can say it will be incredibly difficult to do that.
Having already experienced one 3-day strike by junior doctors, hospital bosses know all too well the kind of stress that places on the entire healthcare system. But this new round of industrial action will cover 4 days and comes off the back of the Easter bank holiday weekend, which is already a very busy time for the health system, particularly in A&E.
So we're now going around to our ambulance offload area.
In the hospital's emergency department, they're getting ready for what will be the biggest disruption to NHS services since a series of strikes began in December.
Hi, how are you getting on? What have we got?
Next week, senior consultant doctors will be on hand to help out. But we're all being asked to consider how we use the health service.
We're here if you need us. If you're unwell and you need help, the NHS will be able to look after you at this time. It's Easter. Be sensible with your DIY, please. Be sensible with your alcohol intakes and, just keep yourself safe.
On the cardiac ward, staff like Jim, an advanced nurse practitioner...
Hey Louisa, how's your breathing today? Any breathlessness?
...will be doing much of the work that might have been carried out by striking doctors.
They will be the go-to person. They will be the people who the nursing staff pick up the phones to, should a person or a patient require an assessment. So I'm absolutely confident that they've got the skills to do it.
Time is running out for this strike to be called off, and the NHS and patients are braced for what could be a tough week. Dominic Hughes, BBC News, Stoke.
An investigation into claims that a Conservative MP lost her role as a government minister after being told her Muslimness was raised as an issue has concluded that it is not possible to draw a clear picture of what happened because of differing accounts. The allegation was made by Nusgani, who said her background and faith were raised in a meeting in 2020 with Mark Spencer. He said that was false. Here's our political correspondent, Leila Nathu.
Minister Nusrat Ghani.
2018, the first time that a minister speaking at the Commons dispatch box was a Muslim woman. A proud moment for Nusgani. But when she was sacked from the Department for Transport in 2020, she says she was told that negativity towards her religion was one reason why she lost her job. Mark Spencer, then the chief whip in charge of party management, now the farming minister, was said to have made the comments.
Yeah, so all is gone.
He strongly denied the claim. Nusgani had taken her concerns to the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. After she went public in January last year, he ordered an independent investigation. Now the report by the Prime Minister's ethics advisor has finally been published. Sir Laurie Magnus says he was unable to conclude with sufficient confidence what was or was not said. He identifies shortcomings in the way Mark Spencer responded to the concerns raised by Nusgani, but clears him of breaking the ministerial code. And he says there are procedural and pastoral lessons to be learned. In a statement, Nusgani stood by her account, saying the impact of what she'd been told 3 years ago had been devastating.
The Tory party has long been facing allegations of Islamophobia within its ranks. In 2021, an independent review did find evidence of discrimination, saying while the problem was not systemic, it must be rooted out. The Conservatives promised to make changes, but for some, this case was seen as another test.
Time and time again, people raise these issues, nothing is done, and then when the media becomes involved, then suddenly some action is taken. And it cannot be that a party finds itself in this position where it doesn't deal with racism within its ranks proactively, but that it has to wait to be shamed into this.
Rishi Sunak said given the absence of clear evidence, he would not be taking any action. He acknowledged it had been an unsatisfactory experience for both ministers and said he'd asked them to pull together. Leila Nathu, BBC News, Westminster.
Scotland's former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon pulled out of a speaking engagement today as police continued to investigate the SNP's finances. Her husband, the party's former chief executive Peter Murrell, has been released without charge following his arrest yesterday. Well, our correspondent Alexandra Mackenzie is at the couple's home in Glasgow now. And what has been happening there today, Alexandra?
Well, police were here for 2 days searching the home of Peter Murrell and Nicola Sturgeon. They just left about an hour ago. There had been a giant tent on the lawn here and police were working there yesterday and today, both at the front of the house and at the back. So they have not long left. But the investigation into the SNP finances, that will continue and probably for some time. The Crown Office and the Procurator Fiscal Service, that they will decide what to do next. There has been no sign here today of either Peter Murrell or Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon was due to address a climate change event in Edinburgh later this evening, but she pulled out. She said that she wanted to keep the focus on the climate change emergency. We have also heard from the new First Minister today, Hamza Yousaf. He's only been in the job for a week, and he said the governance and transparency in the SNP is not to the standard that the Scottish public would expect, and he's asked for a review of that. He said he hoped that this would rebuild some of the trust that may have been lost. He also said that he had never discussed party finances either with Peter Murrell or with Nicola Sturgeon.
Alexandra Mackenzie in Glasgow. Thank you. The time is now 16 minutes past 6. Our top story this evening. The Metropolitan Police says it needs new powers to sack people as it tries to rebuild public trust. And coming up, Frank Lampard returns to Chelsea as its caretaker manager.
And on BBC London, we'll be hearing about Londoners' trust in the Met Police. I'll be getting reaction from young people about their experience with the police service and what they feel needs to change.
Buckingham Palace has announced that it will open up the Royal Archives to researchers who are looking into links between the monarchy and the slave trade in the 17th and 18th centuries. The study is expected to take 3 years, and news of the palace's cooperation came on the King's first Maundy Thursday of his reign. He took part in a centuries-old tradition distributing Maundy money. And our North of England correspondent Fiona Trott went to meet one of the recipients in York.
This is me. What you see is not what you're going to get.
Bob is a biker, but he's also a reverend, helping pupils, patients and the poor in his North Yorkshire community.
I'm not a Bible basher, but I'll sit and listen, and I'm ex-military, so I speak the same language as them. It's not what I look like, it's what's in here and in here.
So what are you looking forward to the most?
Physically shaking his hand. It's hard to contain the excitement.
Finally, the moment Bob and thousands of others have been waiting for. Also outside, a small group of protesters.
It's a new king for like a new year.
Hopefully you'll get a chance to shake his hand.
Inside the Minster, the centuries-old Maundy Thursday service gets underway. And 148 pensioners receive their money.
Thank you. I didn't realise how short he was. And he came up, and what he did, he shook you both hands. He said, congratulations and things like that. And then he pointed to me medal ribbons and said, oh, you've been around. And I said, oh, thank you, sir. And then he went off, like, you know.
For the crowds here, this was the day the King came to York for his first Maundy service. For the people who the service was all about, their day isn't over yet.
One of our neighbours kindly gives a bottle of bubbly. So we're going to sit and have a good look through all the coins. Might even get the hot tub going.
Fiona Trott, BBC News, York.
Let's go back now to the news I mentioned a moment ago, that the Royal Archives are being opened up to researchers looking into links between the monarchy and slavery. Nicholas Witchell is our royal correspondent. What do you make of this news, Nick?
Sensitive area, a very important study, important for the royal family to be seen to be fully addressing this. Remember, it was this issue which pretty much derailed the Cambridges, as they were then, their visit to the Caribbean just a year ago. So Buckingham Palace is throwing open the doors to the Royal Archives and the Royal Collection, and they are cooperating fully with this 3-year independent study to be carried out by a PhD historian who's a PhD student at Manchester University, and it will look at the links between the British monarchy and the transatlantic slave trade in the late 17th and 18th centuries. So principally at the reigns of William III, George III and William IV. And this, of course, was a time when leading members of British society had investments in the slave trade. Now, King Charles has said that he wants to deepen his understanding of this. We're told that he is profoundly serious about it. There is no talk at this stage of reparations. I think what they want to do is uncover the facts and take it from there.
Nick, thank you very much. In the last 5 years, the number of women seeking help after becoming addicted to gambling has more than doubled, according to the charity Gamble Aware. The BBC has been given access to the first women's residential treatment centre for gambling, and our reporter Rachel Stonehouse has been to see the difference it can make to people's lives.
It was boring, but I had to do it because that side of my brain was going, gamble, gamble, gamble.
Everything was revolving around the gambling.
Alyssa and Rebecca hit rock bottom, but now they're back at the place which changed their lives.
Do you find the creative sessions therapeutic?
It's the only time that I can be like in the present.
Rebecca was 19 when she first started gambling.
I had my first son and I got postnatal depression. Went on a gambling site and I won really big and then I never stopped.
What was it like leaving your children for 5 weeks to come here?
It's so hard being in here and you've got a baby at home that's poorly and you're like, they're just saying to you, you know, I want to cuddle and you can't. Sorry.
It's okay. Since opening, the number of women applying to come here has more than doubled.
We limit access to any kind of online services. We try and build that person back up to who they want to be, or at least put them on the right path to where they want to be.
Alyssa's been gambling since she was a child.
I'd kept my gambling a secret for years, and obviously it did eventually all come out. I'd go to work, in between every job I would be gambling. I'd be coming home from work, gambling before like the kids or my missus came home.
Advertising must comply with strict guidelines, but those ads are hard to ignore.
Why can't we advertise smoking, but we can have a gambling advert? You guarantee you listen to the radio every 2-3 songs, you've got a gambling advert or something like that.
The Betting and Gaming Council, which represents the industry in the UK, told the BBC they're encouraged by the latest figures from the independent regulator, the Gambling Commission, which show the rates of problem gambling among UK women is 0.1%, down from 0.2% the year previous. They also say the industry's biggest companies committed an extra £100 million to tackle gambling-related harm and will have donated £110 million by 2024.
Same living room.
The women at the centre are now looking to the future.
How are you getting on?
Really well, thank you.
If there's one thing you wanted to say to staff, what would you say?
Thank you for everything. You taught me how to like love myself and that.
Sorry, because this makes me really emotional. I'm sorry. It's massive, isn't it? It's massive. Yeah, that's me.
That report was from Rachel Stonehouse. If you'd like more information about gambling addiction and organisations that can offer advice and support, there are details on the BBC's Action Line website. You'll find it at bbc.co.uk/Action Line, or there is recorded information on the free number 08000 155 947. Children aged between 6 months and 4 years of age who are deemed to be in high-risk groups will be offered a COVID vaccination for the first time. The jabs will start being given from mid-June in England, following a recommendation by the government's vaccine advisors. The group includes infants with medical conditions such as cystic fibrosis, heart problems and compromised immune systems. The other 3 nations are yet to announce rollout dates. Frank Lampard has been appointed Chelsea's caretaker manager, taking over from the sacked Graham Potter for the rest of the season. Frank Lampard has managed the club before between 2019 and 2021. Chelsea are currently 11th in the Premier League despite significant recent spending on new players. Matt Graveling reports.
There's no doubt that Frank Lampard is a legend in the eyes of Chelsea fans. Upon his return, the club owners will hope the new boss can bring back passion rather than the anger that's been seen this season.
It's a pretty easy decision for me. This is my club in terms of my playing career and having managed, coached here before. So I have a lot of emotions and feelings towards the club.
As a player, Lampard won his own trophy cabinet full of silverware, but as a manager has yet to match this success and now has 11 games left to prove himself at a club that's already dismissed him once.
I'm afraid it looks very much as if they're appeasing the fans. It looks like a fan thing to get somebody in who they know that we will tolerate whatever happens.
I'm not really sure if this is a really good decision because I think once he was fired, so why should he be better this term?
If he does good for the rest of the season, hopefully he'll get a full-time contract. Fingers crossed.
Lampard's managerial record is checkered. He started well at Derby, but ended up winning less than half of his games in charge. It was a similar story in his first time at Chelsea. He did save Everton from relegation, but just 12 wins in 44 games saw him sacked there too. Chelsea are still in the Champions League, so if Frank Lampard can do as he did as a player and lead his team to glory there, who knows? This interim appointment might just become permanent. Matt Graveling, BBC News.
The first major men's golf tournament of the year is underway, the Masters at Augusta, where Northern Ireland's Rory McIlroy, who tees off later, is hoping that he could finally win the title that has so far eluded him. Andy Swiss has been watching the opening action.
It is the annual march to the Masters. From early morning, thousands flock to Augusta, hoping for a front row seat at one of sport's most iconic venues.
Well, for the fans here, watching the Masters is perhaps golf's ultimate spectacle. But playing here, well, that's the ultimate challenge.
And to get things underway, one of the all-time greats. 83-year-old Jack Nicklaus among the ceremonial starters and showing he hasn't lost his touch. The unlikely early leader, though, was an optometrist from Northern Ireland, amateur Matt McLean, briefly heading the field. Soon, though, the spotlight was on this man. 2 years after his career-threatening car crash, Tiger Woods says this could be his last Masters. And although he started promisingly enough, the shots were soon slipping away.
Oh, Tiger.
Woods already with some work to do. Behind its beauty, Augusta offers the toughest of tests. But plenty were rising to the challenge. Norway's Victor Hovland among those setting the pace on a so far intriguing first day. Andy Swiss, BBC News, Augusta.
Time now for us to have a look at the bank holiday weather with Stav Daenerys. Hello, Stav.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you very much. Good evening to you. Well, the bank holiday weekend is nearly upon us and it's looking pretty good for much of us. I think high pressure will be the dominant force through Good Friday into Saturday and Easter Sunday. But by the bank holiday Easter Monday, looks like we'll see low pressure out in the Atlantic, taking back control. It'll send a weather front our way. But high pressure building in, pushing that area of low pressure away towards the North Sea. But we continue with showers, thunderstorms across the southeast of England for the next few hours. Then they'll tend to peter out. There'll still be the odd one there for East Anglia, the far southeast. But with this area of high pressure moving into western areas with clear skies, light winds, a chilly night to come for many. Bit of mist and fog here, but less cold in the southeast because of that cloud. Now that cloud will work its way back into eastern parts of Scotland and England through the day for Good Friday. For most, though, it's a glorious day, a lovely start, chilly mind you, mist and fog clearing, but as the temperatures rise, we'll start to see some fair weather cloud bubbling up. Could just give a light shower, but I think most places will be dry. Chilly along North Sea coast and onshore breeze, but we could be up to the mid-teens in the warmest spots through central and western areas. Then as we head through Friday night, we'll start to see the cloud rolling into eastern areas, maybe the odd spot of rain. So less cold here than what it'll be further west, because here again we'll be under clearer skies with that area of high pressure, so another chilly one to come. And then as we head into Saturday, you can see high pressure bringing more fine weather, southerly winds. By Sunday, we'll start to see some rain getting into Northern Ireland. And then as we head through into the bank holiday Monday, it spreads across the country. That'll be followed by sunshine and fairly blustery showers. So a good looking day to come, I think, Saturday. Sunday could be the warmest day of the Easter holiday. We could be up to 17 or 18 degrees in the warmest spots. And then for Monday, it feels a little bit cooler and we'll see rain followed by showers. So not a bad weekend all in all. That's it. Take care, Michelle.
Stav, thank you very much. And that's the BBC News at 6 for the 6th of April. There's news at any time, of course, on the BBC website. From the 6 team, goodbye, as we hand you over to our colleagues across the nations and regions as the news continues on BBC One.
Under fire and rocked by scandal after scandal, the capital's police force is on its final warning. Tonight, BBC London has a special programme when we ask, do you trust the Met?
An exclusive poll shows what Londoners really think of our police.
And we'll be getting reaction and hearing the experiences of people across the capital.
We'll hear from the Metropolitan Police Commissioner on his promise to change and the issues that matter to you, the Londoners, that the force is supposed to serve and protect.
I'm trying to get about my everyday business, and I have to worry every time I'm behind the wheel, or even walking on the street.
I feel like there's not that much trust in the police, but like you have to put your trust into them because they're the ones that have power.
You know, they're supposed to protect and serve, are they?
I've got friends that want to join the police, but because of the racism and all of it put them off.
We're already doubling the number of people who are leaving the organisation. I've been really clear there are hundreds of people here that shouldn't be here. I've got tens of thousands of fantastic people, but we're all let down by the hundreds.
Very good evening, I'm Assad Ahmed and this is a BBC London special on the Metropolitan Police, who say they're undergoing their biggest reform in half a century to root out rogue officers. But it comes at a time when Londoners are questioning the force and how it polices London. This evening we'll get analysis from our correspondents. We'll hear from the head of the Met and his answers to questions that were asked by viewers and listeners to BBC London. But let's start with an overview from our Home Affairs correspondent, Sonia Jessup. Sonia.
Assad, thank you. Yes, we've been asking Londoners about their views of the Met and whether they have trust and confidence in our force. This exclusive poll was carried out by YouGov, surveying a representative sample of just over 1,000 Londoners. And it gives us a stark picture of the extent of public distrust in the Met. 42% of people asked said that they distrust the force overall. 29% said they did trust the organisation. And look at the difference between women and men. 47% of females said they distrust the Met overall. That's compared to 37% of men. Now, when it comes to trust in individual police officers, there are some clear differences too. 34% of people said they trust individual officers, but the poll found that's lower at 25% among Londoners from minority ethnic backgrounds. Compare that to 41% of those who are white. And how have scandals involving Met officers damaged trust? Wayne Couzens, jailed for murdering Sarah Everard. David Carrick, imprisoned for rape. That damning report too, the Casey Review, which found the force to be institutionally racist, misogynist and homophobic. Well, perhaps not much surprise to find 43% of Londoners say they now view the organisation more negatively than they did the same time last year. Assad.
Sonia, thanks very much for that. Well, Sonia mentioned the murder of Sarah Everard there, undoubtedly a key moment which rocked the Met. And at the vigil that followed her death, some Londoners who just wanted to attend were arrested. Londoners including Patsy Stevenson.
It was the aftermath of coming home and having nightmares about what had happened. So many hate comments, so many messages. On every social media platform there were messages. A lot of them were coming from police accounts. So either people that were in the force, people that were ex-police officers or partners of police. I had Tinder at the time. I think I had Tinder Gold, and so you can see who's swiping on you. And I saw the first picture was like a guy in uniform, in a police uniform. And as I was scrolling down, I realised that quite a few of them were in uniform. It had in their bio, police officer, I have handcuffs, and no, not the pink fluffy kind, and things like that. And there was a lot. In the Casey report, there was part of it that said that a freezer that contained evidence for sexual assault cases had broken down, and all the evidence was destroyed. They don't understand the impact that that will have on someone's life. Before the vigil, I had always trusted police. I'm quite ashamed of myself, really, how ignorant I was